Think about it. A ball, a patch of ground, two goals, maybe just a couple of stones. And just like that, a crowd forms. It happens in the streets of Rio, the alleys of Mumbai, on dusty fields in Lagos. Football doesn't need an invitation, it just shows up. So the real question is, how did this one simple game become the universal language of the entire planet?
All right, let's dive in. We're about to break down exactly how football went from a chaotic, local kickabout into the world's undisputed sporting king. But to really get why it's on top, you have to go way back. Back to a time when football wasn't even one single thing. We need to start with its messy, kind of chaotic, but totally fascinating origins. You know, kicking a ball towards a target, it's like a basic human instinct. They were doing it in ancient China with a game called Cuju centuries ago. But for the longest time, especially in England, football wasn't really a sport. It was more like a label for dozens of wild folk games where the rules were totally different from one village to the next. So, what changed all that? Well, the big turning point was the Industrial Revolution. It changed everything. Suddenly you have tons of people moving to cities for factory jobs. And this created two things: actual defined free time, and this real hunger for a new kind of community identity. Plus, with new railways, teams from different towns could finally play each other. The only problem, they all had different rules. This led to a huge meeting in London in 1863, where the Football Association was born. They created one universal code, and crucially, they split the dribbling game from the rougher hacking game that would eventually become rugby. And right there, football was set on its own path. Okay, so now the game has a code, a universal language, and it was ready to travel. And trust me, it did not hang around in England for long. Its journey across the planet was incredibly fast. As Britain's influence spread around the world, the game basically hitched a ride. You had sailors packing footballs on their ships, workers starting up teams at factories overseas, and students bringing the rulebook back home with them. Before you knew it, clubs were just popping up everywhere, built around this intense sense of local pride. The game got so big so fast that by 1904, it absolutely needed an international governing body. And that's when FIFA was founded in Paris. It was a crucial step in organizing the sport on a truly global scale. But the real catalyst, the moment it went into overdrive, that was the first ever World Cup back in 1930. That tournament took football to a whole new level. It wasn't just a sport you played anymore. It became something you belonged to, a source of national identity and unbelievable global drama. So we've covered the how it spread, but now let's get into the why. What is it about the game itself that let it take over the world? Well, I think it boils down to 5 key reasons. Here they are. This is basically the blueprint for world domination. Let's walk through each of these 5 keys one by one. First up, and this is probably the most important one, it's just so accessible. This is football's superpower. You don't need fancy equipment or a perfectly manicured field. All you really, truly need is a ball. And honestly, even that can be a bunch of rags tied together or an old plastic bottle. That's why it thrives everywhere, from wealthy cities to the poorest villages. The barrier to entry, it's practically zero. Next up is its brilliant duality. On the surface, the rules are so simple, a 5-year-old gets it, right? But the ball in the other team's net, easy. But underneath that simple surface, oh man, there's a whole universe of tactical depth. We're talking formations, pressing triggers, complex movements. It's simple enough for anyone to enjoy, but complex enough to keep the diehard fans obsessed for a lifetime. I mean, this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It really is like playing chess, but at a dead sprint. All right, reason number 3. Unlike basketball or other high-scoring games, goals in football are rare. They're precious. An entire 90-minute match can be decided by a single moment of brilliance or one tiny mistake. And because they're so rare, this incredible tension just builds and builds and builds throughout the game. And that's the hook. Because when that goal finally comes, the release of all that built-up pressure is just euphoric. It's an explosive, addictive, emotional rush that is one of the most powerful experiences in all of sports. Let's move on to identity. Supporting a football club is rarely just about sports. These clubs become these powerful symbols of your city, your neighborhood, your shared history. You don't just choose a team. A lot of the time, you inherit it. It's in your blood. And you see this identity expressed everywhere. It's in the rivalries passed down through generations, the little pregame rituals you have, the songs you sing from the stands. The colors you wear become a part of who you are. For millions, their club is like a dialect of home. It tells the world where you're from and what you stand for. And finally, reason number 5, football is the world's greatest storyteller. The narratives it produces feel like they were written for a movie. You've got the underdog beating the giant, an unknown player becoming a legend overnight, an entire nation holding its breath united behind their team. And because it's a global game, we all get to watch the same drama unfold together. So when you combine all of that, its history, its sheer accessibility, its raw emotional power, you start to see why football isn't just a sport. It's something much more fundamental. And this is really the ultimate takeaway. Football conquered the world because it does something truly remarkable. It takes the simplest act, kicking a ball, and turns it into a platform for strategy, for identity, and for storytelling. In the end, it doesn't matter what language you speak. If you understand the pure joy of a goal, you understand football. So I'll leave you with this question. What was it for you? Was it a specific player, a classic match, a World Cup moment that you'll just never ever forget? What's the story of how you fell in love with the beautiful game?